Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of 5 Facts. Today we're talking about 1990's Arachnophobia. This is a movie with Jeff Bridges, directed by Frank Marshall, and it is absolutely chock full of spiders, as you would expect with a movie title like this. So if you're squeamish about spiders, walk away from the computer, don't stop the video. We need those sweet, sweet YouTube minutes. Don't stop the video, come back in 10 and it'll be over. But yes, this movie is full of spiders, and let's get to the facts. Fact number 1, spiders are very difficult to work with. Spiders can't be trained in the traditional sense. You can't give them tasks and reward them with food. They simply don't have the brain capacity to be able to do this. You can kind of get them to run along tracks, and they had a lot of interesting ways of doing that for this movie. In order to get them to follow the paths that were needed for this, they used a lot of different tricks. Sometimes it was as simple as a blow dryer going down the path to try to encourage them to go a certain way. Other times they made a complete edge with lemon pledge. The spiders really didn't like the feeling of this on their legs, so they would stay on the middle path and go wherever it guided them. If they would actually walk forward, sometimes they just stood there. The actors quipped a lot on set that basically they were secondary to the spiders. There were a lot of takes that were given extras just for the spiders, like spider take 10, spider take 15. And they actually had a betting pool for how many takes it would take to actually get the spiders to behave the way they wanted to. Entomologist Stephen Kutcher also worked on this movie, and he's been one of the guys that's most important for getting bugs to work in Hollywood. He's been doing this for a long time. And the way he got them to work in this movie is very interesting. He set up a sort of rail system for them, where if he wanted them to walk in a straight line, say going for the older doctor's shoe, he would set a very, very, very thin monofilament wire and vibrate it at a speed that the camera couldn't see, and the spider couldn't go left or right without this agitating them, so they went in a straight line. He also had a lot of different ways for getting other bugs to do the things that they wanted, but he got very specialized for spiders in this particular film. To keep all the spiders in one area, a lot of times they would put them to sleep with carbon dioxide, and they would attach these little monofilament leashes, the same things that we were talking about earlier, so that they could only wander so far. They attached these with wax to the abdomen, which was supposedly completely harmless to the spider. Some of the more complicated shots were actually managed by putting electromagnets on the spiders and using a little bit of a prod that way to get them to move in the direction that they wanted to. With so many interesting shots that happen in this movie, things coming out of sinks, coming out of all these other places, I'm sure it was absolutely bonkers trying to get these spiders to do what they wanted. Step 2. Selecting spiders for this role was difficult. They had to have a Spider Olympics to determine what species they were going to use. To evaluate what spider they would use on film, Frank Marshall said that they evaluated a number of species. The main ones that they tried were tarantulas, hobo spiders, wolf spiders, and huntsman spiders. They were subjected to their reaction to heat, to cold, to touch, and also how fast they were, because the faster a spider is, the creepier it actually is. Also, spiders move with a really weird mechanical system in their legs where they're pushing fluid, and that's why whenever they die, when there's nothing pushing it, they always cinch up like this. So imagine whenever a spider's running, it's more akin to a bunch of weird penises hitting the ground, rather than, muscles. So that's your daily spider fact right there. Ultimately, they decided on the Avondale Spider from New Zealand. It's a type of huntsman spider in the family Delina cancerides. It's a 3-inch wide huntsman, and these are actually completely harmless to humans, and they're relatively docile, despite what they end up getting them to do in this movie. Big Bob, which was actually the queen spider in this movie, is a bird-eating tarantula, and about 8 inches across, fairly big spider, but they still decided that they weren't quite big enough, so they put a fake abdomen on, painted some purple lines, and basically used that to make the spider a little bit more imposing. Fact number 3. Despite all of this, no spiders were harmed during the making of this film. The crew took huge measures to make sure that their arachnid actors were safe the entire time. Any scene involving a dead spider actually used spiders that had died of natural causes. And a lot of these spiders simply being shipped from New Zealand and all that, they ran their life cycle and would end up dying on the set. So they didn't have to hurt any of those spiders to actually get a dead one on the screen. Even the scene where John Goodman walks up and squishes a moving spider was done with Hollywood effects instead of just crushing one of the many, many spiders they had on set. There was actually a cubby built into the sole of his shoe, and that's part of the reason why he steps so clearly and slowly down. It took them more than an afternoon to just get that one shot, which only had about 30 usable seconds. Fact number 4. The finale took over 2 weeks to film. Jeff Daniels had to stick around after almost every other person was sent home from the set of this movie. They did their parties, they did their going away stuff, but Jeff Bridges was basically told, alright, get in the basement. The scene took 2 weeks of 13-hour days to actually finish. 2 of those days, Jeff Daniels had to be under a 250-pound wine rack, basically throwing bottles at a real tarantula. One that he was told that he shouldn't even get a bottle close to it, so he had to miss by about 3 feet. One time, one of the bottles actually broke and covered Big Bob in wine, and they basically had to take Big Bob to his trailer so he could dry out for a little while. Daniels had this to say about the fiery and dangerous sequence. Movies have a way of saving those life or death stunts for last, so that if they lose an actor, it's a shame and it's horrible, but we'll all be there at the funeral saying, at least we got our film shot. So it's one of those where, yeah, it's a little bit dangerous. I don't know if he was ever in dire peril here, but it's a fairly dangerous sequence with so much fire and everything else happening. Fact number 5, popcorn facts. Whenever I can't find a giant meaty fact to dig into, I like to put a bunch of little ones out there, so here we go. The General Spider at the end of the film was actually a puppet made by Mythbusters' Jamie Hyneman. It was one of the first times he worked on a major Hollywood set. The name of the town in the film is Canaima. Canaima is the name of the avenging spirit of the Guyana Indians. It's also the name of the area in Venezuela where the beginning of the movie was filmed and home to the tallest waterfall in the world, Angel Falls. This was the first time that anyone had actually filmed in this particular part of Venezuela. The movie was originally going to end more akin to the way Birds ended, where people look over and there's a spider, people look over and there's a spider, and they're just all over the place, kind of like with Birds, where at the end, birds just keep showing up and it kind of turns into a thing. Steven Spielberg, who was producing this movie, decided that they were just going to make this a self-contained movie and call it good at that point. In the official billing, this movie was billed as the first thrill-omedy, and was widely panned for calling itself that. The Washington Post spent more time talking about this than a good portion of actually reviewing the movie. Also, we can be very thankful that there are no spiders that actually move in colonies like this. There aren't spider drones, there aren't spider, soldiers like this. They are mostly solitary creatures, even though there are a couple that'll get along in groups. Most of them are also cannibals, so you're not really going to have a very good time if you try to put that many spiders next to each other in a general sense. Arachnophobia is so 90s that it hurts. It manages to be a comedy that touches on the edge of horror and plays with suspense. Anytime you almost get a bite, you actually start getting that thrill going because you know that that bite is absolutely deadly, and so many times there are close calls. It's also very nostalgic of a more innocent time. 1990 was a time when things were just kind of a little bit more up and just a lot softer than they are now. And it shows in this movie. I also suppose it feels a little bit more innocent because this was a Disney movie. It was the first Disney movie released under the Hollywood Pictures Company, which is their way to make some more mature titles. Sometimes even the mouse relies on a bit of fear and death to get audiences in seats. I can't in good conscience recommend this as a horror movie. I can say that I enjoy the crap out of it. I think that it's a very funny and silly movie that's a good 90s timepiece. I would recommend it just to get those little scares with the spider, just to laugh a little bit and see Jeff Bridges before Dumb and Dumber, and really, it's just a fun movie. What did you guys think of this one? Is it too absurd for it to ever be considered even close to horror? Did you enjoy it? Were you checking under your toilet seat for a while afterwards because of these spiders? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you really enjoy this, check out some of our other content. One of our favorite things to do is the Nether Block. There's a playlist below that actually will take you to the beginning of that series, and that's a really fun one in which we make one of the dumbest builds in Minecraft ever. It's a very funny series, and I think you guys would enjoy it. Also, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/HumanEchoes. See you guys next week. Please put your suggestions for movies in the comments as well so that I know what to film and what you guys want to see. Have a good one.